So I absolutely loved Gremlins, The Secrets of the Mogwai, and I'm really surprised that this show isn't more hyped, as it's just so good. The animation alone is just absolutely incredible, and it's really brilliant that one of the production companies for this animated series is Amblin Television, who is the production house by Steven Spielberg, and of course he directed the first two absolutely iconic live action movies. So it's really great that now that we're getting the prequel series, it is being developed by his production house to really keep it all consistent. And there are just so many similarities from that future live action storyline in this prequel series, and of course it's decades in between the two properties, and I just think they've just done such a good job in developing it. And I absolutely love how in the original live action series there is a grandfather and a grandson relationship, and in this animated series there is a similar grandfather and grandson relationship, and actually the grandfather that was reluctant to sell Gizmo in the first place in the live action series is now the grandson in this animated series. So they just connected it so intelligently. And if you're watching the series now, I just think it's really brilliant, as it's super bingeable. But if you were watching it while it was released, I just think the release model was really clever. How they were releasing 2 episodes per week, and they had a cliffhanger at the end of every single episode, so you just can't wait to digest the next one. And of course, typical live action TV shows are 40 minutes, and each one of these is 20 minutes each, so they are effectively doing the same thing by having 2 20-minute episodes together. And the world building in this animated series was just done really well. Across the 10 episodes, they've managed to get in so many brilliant, nice Chinese folklore-based storylines. A couple of them, I do think they overdid the supernatural elements, and I think if it was a little bit more grounded, it would have been even more compelling. But what I was really surprised by and was not expecting is that there is a lot of death and destruction in this series, and they had a lot of free reign to be able to do whatever they wanted, and I do think they actually did the right thing. I mean, all of these gremlin, demonic, goblin-y type characters are absolutely causing mass chaos and mass carnage, and so of course naturally with that there will be a lot of death and destruction, and because it's an animated property they are just able to do whatever they wanted, and so it was really surprising, but in the best possible way. And I actually think the key audience for this animated series is adults that loved the live action movies, as I feel like kids, yes, they definitely can enjoy it, but I feel like it's actually made for parents first and foremost, and I actually think that's really brilliant, as I personally am a massive animation fan. And it's just really brilliant that they're actually catering for that adult animating loving audience. And I think the lead character of Sam was so good, super endearing, and he is just the nicest person ever. And I just love that, you know, he is actually a really good role model in terms of somebody that wants to actually listen and follow what his parents are saying, and is also a bit of a medicine Chinese herbal expert, which I feel like is definitely having a bit of a wave at the moment in terms of preferring more organic, natural-based remedies. So I feel like that was really timely. And I just think the character is so good. He reminded me a little bit of Aang from The Last Airbender, especially in terms of his look and design. But like I said, he was just such a nice character, and you're just immediately able to be wanting to follow him. And I think it's really interesting how his parents are very overly protective, very similarly to the parents in Zootopia, who I just think were absolutely hilarious. And Matthew Rhys just did such an incredible job in terms of bringing evil wizard Riley Green to life. I mean, oh my goodness, this guy, firstly, was absolutely hilarious. His comedic timing with all of his dialogue was really good, but at the same time, he is an incredibly menacing villain. And when you first see him, you think, okay, this guy's a really dark and evil character. But the second in which he uses his pearl magic to trap the grandfather into a pearl ball, swallow him, and then be able to use in a really malicious way all of his expertise and experience, and actually using this in an intimidating way to actually make Sam feel worse about himself, as he of course knows a lot about what his grandfather really thinks. But of course Sam doesn't know that, you know, not everything that he's saying is the truth, so he can really manipulate people because of this superpower. And if you ever played or watched the animated show of Shenmue, then I feel like, you know, this guy does have a lot of similarities in terms of Lan Di, who is an incredibly threatening villain. Similarly to Sam, Gizmo is just the cutest character ever. I just feel like they depicted him so well. I love that there are actually so many Mogwai right in the beginning of this show, and then across the different episodes as well. So that was really nice to see, you know, the world in which the Mogwai came from. And of course, there are so many gremlins. I was actually expecting there to not be as many as there are, but I was so pleasantly surprised that, they really did go all out with this. And all of them just have so much character, causing absolute chaos and carnage, so much death and destruction, like I said before. And they were just such an integral part of it. And actually are really, really intelligent to the point in which they can actually negotiate with Riley Green and get what they want, and at points are able to actually overthrow Riley Green. So, the Gremlins were a massive part of this show. I mean, of course, the clue is in the title, but like I said, I wasn't expecting them to fully go out there with it, and they just did such an impressive job. Elle was a really, really interesting character, wasn't she? I mean, in the beginning, she is a real opposite to Sam, and I feel like because of that, they make a really nice pairing and duo. But then, when she let the train go and was able to just escape with Gizmo, I was like, oh my god, this character is the most untrustworthy character ever. But she is incredibly street smart. So like I said, just matches Sam in a different way. So together, they actually make a really good pairing. But I just thought, oh my goodness, this character, you can't trust her at all. But then when they explained her backstory, that actually she has a lot of abandonment issues, which explains why she does what she does. I mean, of course, it doesn't justify it, or you shouldn't ignore it because of it. You should learn from it. But at least you can see where she was coming from. And I absolutely loved her iconic umbrella. And she was able to use the umbrella in a really brilliant way. Firstly, to save herself when, she is just flying down from somewhere. And also, as a weapon, I mean, she uses it against a number of different characters, and every single time it is actually a successful weapon to use. The grandfather, I think, is really, really brilliant too. I love that, he is just full of an adventure, adrenaline, and running inside of him, and he is able to teach and impart a lot of knowledge, and just his book was just so useful for Sam and Elle to go on their adventure, and I just think he is a really cute character too. So now let's talk about all of the adventures that take place across this series. Like I said, every single episode has one, which was just really, really brilliant. Firstly, the town chase, and I mean the fact that Riley Green was just such an intimidating character when he just traps them in their house. I thought that was pretty scary. But also when they're running away from him, when they are trying to run away from all of the gremlins, when you don't know whether or not Ella's going to be a threat or actually a partner. I feel like all of the town chase sequences in Shanghai were really, really cool. The train one was really, really brilliant too. It was really unexpected that, the ticket inspector was going to be this other mythical character that also wants to eat Gizmo. And I just think that concept is actually really, really chilling in terms of, people just want to eat Gizmo, steal his ability to live forever. And also when Riley Green thought that, he is just able to have one of those slimy gremlins and get the same benefit. Actually, this didn't work out. The tea lady, she was actually really, really creepy. The fact that she was able to pretty much remove people's minds and just trap them in this house because she is feeling really, really lonely and abandoned herself. And I just thought, she is a really evil character from a witch point of view in terms of using all of these potions to really trap people for pretty much their entire life and just ruining their life as a result. I wasn't so keen on the forest episode, if I'm being honest. I thought those zombies were actually pretty pathetic, and I just did not really like that episode at all. The next one, in which they go into this magical realm, the ghost world, where they have to find the key, I thought was really, really interesting, as it's kind of split into two parts, isn't it? The first part is really, really eerie. There's kind of ghostly town everywhere. Then they're able to get into this magical realm where they have to try to find the key to try to get into the Valley of the Jade. So, those sequence of episodes were actually really, really interesting. And just seeing the creator of all of the Mogwai and how her brother wasn't really a fan of humans, and she is losing her trust as the years went on. I feel like they could have just done a little bit more with that world. I feel like it was over really, really quickly, and I would have loved a couple more sequences. I mean, I loved all of the female fox chase sequence, and then that random fish that was trying to eat Gizmo as well. I mean, they did do interesting things, but I feel like they definitely could have done a little bit more. I absolutely love the Valley of the Jade and the fact that all of the rocks are actually made of jade. I feel like that was absolutely brilliant. And then when Riley Green and all of the gremlins come in and completely tear it apart, this kind of paradise-based area is completely destroyed by these guys. And I just feel like it's a really interesting analogy of being really careful about who you let into your life, as they can totally destroy your life and destroy, this harmony and utopia society that you've created that is your life. So even though, it's a really far-fetched example of it, I feel like you can actually learn a lot from this series. And then, of course, we have all of the takeover by the Gremlins of Shanghai and literally tearing that town apart completely. And I loved it, how the Gremlins were able to overthrow Riley Green, but then Riley Green was able to get the last laugh on them. So another lesson is just being really careful about who you double cross, because this could mean that, you know, you're going to be feeling the consequences of this. Mrs. Claw was really, really funny. She was pretty much the leader of all of the Gremlins at one point, and I think it was really, really brilliant how she was truly able to negotiate with Riley Green, especially on his ship. And she was saying, look, we want to take your ship over because we want to see the world and destroy the world. So I think it was really, really brilliant from a Mrs. Claw perspective, especially how she had a bit of a crush on Gizmo and was always after Gizmo. And going back to Riley Green, I just in the final few moments of, you know, this guy almost destroying everything and getting to this gigantic size, at points it honestly felt like he was going to be unstoppable. I don't know how on earth Gizmo and Sam were going to stop him. And of course LT, but it was really brilliant how they were able to really outsmart all of these characters in the end. I literally can't wait for season 2, and the showrunner has said, you know, season 2 is going to be even more crazy than season 1, and they're hoping that they're going to get loads more seasons, as like I said, there is so much space in between this animated series and of course the live action series. So I just can't wait to hopefully get so much more Gremlins content. I thought it was really, really cute too. You know, Gizmo now has the opportunity to go back to his paradise living, but actually chose to stay in our world with Sam and with Elsa. Of course, Gizmo is now in our world, but we also have that clever talking gremlin who has the ring that prevents any magic from touching him, which I thought was really, really clever. So obviously we have that gremlin, which can potentially cause even more gremlins to come out. And I wasn't too keen on the Radish character, but he's stuck in that magical realm. So I wonder if he's going to come into the human realm, or maybe he's going to get more powers too. I literally can't wait for season 2 and just seeing even more Chinese-based storylines taking place, and maybe they'll go to other countries, which could be really, really fascinating. I just can't wait to see what's going to happen next. So, you know, overall, I absolutely loved Gremlins, the sequence of the Mogwai. I feel like they did everything right with this series. A couple of story points did miss in my opinion, but for the majority of them, they were absolutely successful with them. All of the storylines from a mini episodic perspective are really, really brilliant, whilst also telling this bigger narrative. So I just think they did all of the storytelling really, really intelligently. All of the characters are really, really deep and so much depth with every single one of them that you get to grow as the episodes are going with these characters, and you get to find out a lot more about them, both in terms of their past and what they are going to be doing in the present. The visuals, like I said, were absolutely glorious. I'm so glad that we got a lot of Gremlins in here. Gizmo is just as cute as he is in the live action series, and this series as a whole was just so gripping, and like I said, I cannot wait to see what they're going to be doing next. And so for all of those reasons, I'm going to give Gremlins, the sequence of the Mogwai, a mega 8 out of 10. Now I'd love to hear what you thought of this animated series, so let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.